Welcome to Beyond the Soul, a philosophical reframing of being and death. Today, we'll embark on an intellectual journey to rethink identity, existence, and the eternal return. Our exploration will involve a unique synthesis, bringing together profound insights from Western metaphysics and the ancient Eastern concept of qi. Let's begin by examining what I call the limits of the mind-body gridlock. For centuries, philosophy has grappled with a traditional dilemma: how do we define the human mind, consciousness, or what we often refer to as the soul? Historically, we've relied on restrictive models. Think of Descartes' dualism, which posited the mind as a wholly distinct substance from the physical body, or Spinoza's psychophysical parallelism, and Bergson's monistic dualism. Each offered explanations, but ultimately, they reached their own limits. This compels us to ask a deeper question: what truly constitutes the identity of a human being? And perhaps more profoundly, what is the non-representational source of our representational mind and body? This brings us to the evolution of identity from substance to capacity. Let's trace how our understanding has evolved. Early on, dualism, as put forth by Descartes, saw the mind and body as separate, independent substances. Its limitation? It struggled to explain their profound integration. Then came parallelism and monistic dualism, from thinkers like Spinoza and Bergson. These concepts suggested that mind and body exist in synchronized attributes or integrated states, a step forward. However, they still viewed the representational mind as a primary, fixed entity. The real breakthrough, in our view, comes with the univocity of being, particularly as explored by Deleuze. Here, identity is no longer a substance. Instead, the sufficient reason for a living being is its virtual capacity or productive desire. The core insight is that the univocity of being applies directly to human existence. We are not separate, but rather expressions of a single, continuous, productive force. Following this line of thought, we see the mind as an expression, not an entity. Imagine a central input virtual capacity, or productive desire. When this capacity passes through the brain, it produces outputs we recognize as consciousness or the mind. That's branch 1. If that same capacity passes through other parts of the body, it produces different outputs. Through the hands, it becomes action, branch 2. And critically, through the entire body, it manifests as distributed memory. Memory isn't confined to the brain. As the saying goes, the body remembers. The core insight here is that the mind is merely one function produced when virtual capacity flows through the brain. If that identical capacity flows through the hands, mouth, or reproductive organs, it expresses itself in fundamentally different ways. Now, let's look at the arc of life: condensation of the virtual. Picture the boundless virtual field, a vast sea of potentiality. Birth, in this framework, is a process of differentiation. It's the creation of a new living being, simply the emergence of a new capacity. It's how a fragment of that boundless virtual field differentiates and condenses into a concrete, actual entity. Consciousness and the soul, in this view, are merely functions that activate within this newly formed capacity. And what about death? This leads us to the fate of capacity returning to the real. Death occurs when the capacities and energies of a living being exhaust, and bodily functions cease. The body decays, returning to matter. But what of the invisible mind? The individual mind, as a function, disappears alongside the body. However, the productive desire, that fragment of virtual capacity that defined the being, does not vanish into nothingness. Instead, it undergoes de-differentiation, dissolving back into what we call the real field, or Apeiron. This is not the annihilation of being, but simply the disappearance of its temporary functions. This concept finds powerful, cross-cultural resonance: the dimension of qi. Deleuze's concept of virtuality resonates profoundly with the East Asian philosophy of qi. Both perspectives reject the absolute annihilation of the soul, favoring instead a continuous transformation of state. As scholar Li Yung Wu points out, the dimension of qi is not disconnected from the dimension of individuals. Rather, it is the dimension of potentiality. The dimension of univocity, where ontological equality prevails. He further emphasizes that, at the level of qi, life and death are continuous. Let's summarize this: ontological continuity, East meets West. On the Deleuzian side, we have the virtual or Apeiron as the underlying field of potentiality. In East Asia, this is mirrored by the dimension of qi. Deleuze's differentiation, where virtual capacity condenses into a concrete entity, represents life. This aligns with qi gathering in Eastern thought. Conversely, Deleuze's de-differentiation, where realized capacity dissolves back into the field, signifies death. This corresponds to qi dispersing. Phenomenally, life and death appear as a harsh break. Ontologically, however, they are merely different expressions of a continuous, subsisting force. This idea of continuity and transformation is echoed across various wisdom traditions, forming a chorus of transformation. Zhuangzi wisely stated, "Death is returning home. There is nothing to fear. Life and death are one, merely transformations of nature." The Korean Buddhist master Sungchul offered, "Life is like the arising of a single cloud, death is like the scattering of that cloud." And the renowned monk Byapjong taught, at its root, death does not exist, there is only a world that continually transforms. Even in Western philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer reflected, for nature, our death is a return to the place where we were born, a homecoming after long wandering. This brings us to the ultimate question of recurrence. If death is indeed a return to the boundless field, does this energy ever emerge again? This structure of generation and return connects directly to Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence. But to truly understand it through the lens of virtual capacity, we must first unlearn what we think we know about Nietzsche. Let's address the misunderstanding eternal recurrence. The common myth is that eternal recurrence is the repetition of the exact same self, personality, and identical life story, a mechanism of duplication. But the reality is far more profound. Eternal recurrence is the continual circulation of potential force that endlessly produces new assemblages. It's not a loop of sameness, but a device of emergence and creation. This distinction is crucial for understanding the engine of difference. So, what does not return? The intensive individual, the same personality, story, or form. What eternally returns? The productive force itself, the capacity for intensification, and the ability to generate difference. This is the rule of desire. The repetition of life and death is the eternal return of virtual force. Desire returns eternally, but the individuals it produces are always profoundly different. The productive power of desire never ceases. Ultimately, we are left with the continuous cycle of being. It begins with 1. The Apeiron or qi field, the boundless dimension of virtual potentiality. Then comes 2. Condensation, or birth, through differentiation and the gathering of qi, where a new capacity is formed. This leads to 3. Expression, or life, where that capacity passes through organs, generating the functions of mind and action. Next is 4. Exhaustion, or death, marking the breakdown of physical functions and representational identity. This is followed by 5. Dispersal, or return, a process of de-differentiation and the scattering of qi, as capacity dissolves back into the real. Finally, we reach 6. Reconfiguration, or eternal recurrence, where the productive force cycles back to generate entirely new, different assemblages. In this framework, identity is not a fixed substance that is annihilated, but a temporary, brilliant condensation of an eternal, generative flow.